Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for November 4th, 2020. Before we get started with the business component of our meeting today, I'd like to announce that the Commission has appointed a new director of its Consumer Affairs Division. Stephanie Bolton will be joining us effective today as the new director of CAD. She brings to us a diverse set of experience both in management, law, customer service, and marketing, serving most recently as the Chief of Staff for the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore. Obviously, there's no more important of a time for this agency to be focused on customer protections, particularly in the midst of this pandemic. And I believe Stephanie will greatly assist our very professional CAD team that exists and hit the ground running as she starts today. So we look forward to having her join our team. With that, we have some minutes to approve from our last meeting of October 28th, 2020. Approval of those minutes will begin with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 9 items on the consent agenda today. Items number 1 and 2 are applications from South Shore Trading and Distributors, Inc. for licenses to operate as an electric and a gas supplier. Item number 3 is a notice and change of ownership from EnerConnex LLC. Item number 4 is a request from Community Energy, Inc. to cancel its electricity supplier license. Numbers 5, 6, and 7 are requests from Amazon Data Services, Inc. for approval to construct generation stations in Laurel, Jessup, and Severn. Item number 8 is Cambria Wind LLC's application for certification of a renewable energy facility. And finally, item number 9 is Holcomb Paulding Wind Project's application for certification of a renewable energy facility.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions on these 9 consent items? Hearing none, with respect to items number 1 and 2, I move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland with respect to item number 1, and a natural gas supplier with respect to item number 2, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and further direct the company to provide marketing materials and training materials specific to its Maryland operations to the Commission staff 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland, and direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in its applications. With respect to item number 3, I move that we note the filing. With respect to item number 4, I move that we approve the cancellation request. With respect to items 5, 6, and 7, I move that we approve the application to construct the requested generation stations under Section 7-207.1A of the Public Utilities Article. With respect to item number 8, I move that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number, and direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification, and direct the applicant to notify the Commission within 30 days of the information on which the application is based should change. And finally, with respect to item number 9, I move that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number, direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification, direct the applicant to file an on-site and behind-the-meter generation report with the Commission within 1 week of each recording of generation data with GATS, and direct the applicant to notify the Commission within 30 days if the information on which the application is based should change. The vote count begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motions are approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, item number 10 on the administrative agenda is a request from Potomac Edison for a waiver from the statutory certificate of public convenience and necessity requirement in order to replace a structure on the existing Monocacy Eaglehead 230 kV transmission line in Frederick County, Maryland. On this item for staff, we have Christopher Lowe and James Greger, and for the company, Daniel Summerhill and Jeffrey Trout.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lowe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Christopher Lowe on behalf of staff. This item concerns a request from Potomac Edison Company for a certificate of public convenience and necessity waiver pursuant to Public Utilities Article Section 7-207B4. PUA Section 7-207 requires an electric company to obtain a CPCN prior to commencing construction of an overhead transmission line that is designed to carry a voltage in excess of 69 kV. However, exceptions are outlined within the article. PUA Section 7-207B4I further states that the Commission shall waive the CPCN requirement should it find that the construction does not require the company to obtain new property or rights of way through eminent domain, or require larger or higher structures to accommodate increased voltage or larger conductors. On September 30th, 2020, Potomac Edison filed a request to the Commission for a waiver from the requirement to obtain a CPCN. The request includes the work to replace one existing structure along the Monocacy Eaglehead 230 kV line to allow for Diamond Communication LLC to maintain up to 3 cell carrier elevation in Frederick County, Maryland. According to Potomac Edison, the new replacement structure will be 130 feet in height and will be shifted 15 feet from its current position to avoid any planned outages. The height increase and new location for the proposed structure will have no negative impact on the clearances between the existing structures. And the expected cost is approximately $765,000, and Diamond Communication will reimburse Potomac Edison for all of the costs associated with the project. In its filing, Potomac Edison states that all work will be performed on the property already subject to easements held by the company. Also, there will be no increase in the voltage or the size of any conductor. Based on staff's review of the filing and discovery responses from Potomac Edison, staff recommends that the Commission grant a mandatory waiver of a CPCN requirement pursuant to PUA Section 7-207B4I to replace one structure on the existing Monocacy Eaglehead 230 kV line. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next turn to the company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jeff Proud for Potomac Edison. We agree with staff's analysis. We're available to answer any questions you have.
Do the Commission have any questions? Hearing none, I propose that we grant the company's request for a waiver of the CPCN requirement under Section 7-207B4I of the Public Utilities Article to replace one structure on the existing Monocacy to Eaglehead 230 kilovolt transmission line. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, item number 11. Mr. Chairman, item number 11 on today's agenda is a request from the Department of Housing and Community Development to transfer funds from the BGE Maryland Energy Efficiency Tune-Up Benefit Budget to the Multifamily Energy Efficiency and Housing Affordability Residential Benefit Budget for BGE. On this item for staff, we have Kevin Mosier and James Greger. For DHCD, Scott Falvey, Nicola Tran, and Amy Grasso. And for Office of People's Counsel, Anna Ryan.
Thank you. We will begin with PSC staff. Good morning.
I'm sorry, Kevin, you're on mute.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Kevin Mosier on behalf of staff. On October 1st, DHCD filed a request for approval to allow the department to transfer $275,000 from the BG&E Meat Residential Benefit Budget to the BG&E MEHA Residential Benefit Budget. Through a letter order issued by the Commission on May 27, 2020, the Commission authorized DHCD to make certain budget adjustments with staff approval subject to a 15% limit. As this $275,000 is above the 15% limit, Commission approval is required. Staff believes that given the unique situation created by COVID, that these may not otherwise be distributed. Therefore, staff recommends the Commission grant DHCD's request.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. We'll turn to Maryland Office of People's Counsel. So, Ms. Ryan, can you hear us?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Fields with the Office of People's Counsel. Philip OPC. I see his picture, but I don't know if he can actually hear us.
Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Can you hear us?
It doesn't appear that he can. We filed a letter, Your Honor. I don't believe we have any additional comments. We agreed with staff's position.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fields. So you support the request. Thank you. We will next turn to the department.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. It looks like Mr. Sheehan is say something.
Good morning. This is Philip Sheehan standing in for Anna Ryan. And as Mr. Fields stated, we have no objection to this budget transfer. It was as detailed in Ms. Ryan's November 2nd letter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now turn to the department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. Amy Grasso on behalf of the Department of Housing and Community Development. I think Mr. Mosier accurately summarized our motion. I would just add that the MEAT program has not reached and does not expect to reach its forecasts, but the MEHA program has project demand that in the BG&E territory that exceeds the available BG&E residential budget. And so the transfer of funds would allow the department to assist 282 units in achieving additional electrical savings, which we think is, in furtherance of the goals of the program. And we are available. Scott Falvey is here as well to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grasso. Do commissioners have questions for any of the parties?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I have a question for the department. I was just curious as to what is it about the MEHA program that is rendered it capable of still providing service during and assistance during COVID when the MEAT program has not been able to do so?
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think that one of the advantages that we had with the MEHA program during COVID is that we were still able to take in applications and review applications and continue the work that we would do that doesn't require being out in the field. And so we've been able to accumulate and review applications just kind of pending and waiting for the opportunity to be able to start going into the field. And so now that we have these applications, we have the demand. Once we actually close these projects, we can actually start going to work under construction and get the projects complete.
So there was a pause, I guess, in the taking of applications under the MEAT program, where you continue to do so under MEHA. Is that
I can't speak for the MEAT program. My understanding is the application process is out there. But there was certainly a stop in the field work, which prevented them from doing, work at the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Falvey. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hearing no other commissioners seeking recognition, I would move that we approve the DHCD's request. The vote is with Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
O'Donnell, and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
Vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 12 is a request from Mattawoman Energy LLC for an amendment of its certificate of public convenience and necessity in case number 9330. On this item for staff, we have Kevin Zong, Peter Wilson, and James Greger. For Office of People's Counsel, Philip Sheehan. For PPRP, Steve Tolson, Fred Kelly, John Grace, and Matt Irby. The company, Bradley Peaks, Ian Shavitz, and Brandon Upchurch. Several other interested persons have also signed up. Those include Janet Gingold from Prince George's Sierra Club, Ruth Alice White from Howard County Climate Action, Bontasha Sims, Henry Cole, Dr. Henry Cole representing the Clean Air Prince George's, Maureen Fine and Marissa Chan from Greenbelt Climate Action Network, Mildred Kreinmeyer from Southern Maryland Audubon Society for Prince George's County. Also Joyce Dowling, Judy Allen Leventhal, Alveda Addison, Bonnie Bick, Sherry Burtonstein, Sheena Washington, Liz Feiner, David Cantor, and finally Carlos Childs.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Since we have a large number of interested parties today, we'll begin with staff and the state agencies. We'll then turn to interested members of the public and other nonprofit associations, and then we'll finish up by hearing from the company and the company's consultant. So we will begin with commission staff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Kevin Zong with the staff. Mattawoman Energy LLC is the applicant who is requesting amendments to the CPCN conditions. Mattawoman was first granted the CPCN in case number 9330 by the Commission Order number 87243 on November 13, 2015 for natural gas-powered electric generating station. To date, the plant is still in construction. The purpose of this request is to obtain authorization from the Commission to allow additional appropriation of waters needed for the construction dewatering associated with approximately 7.3 miles of the natural gas supply pipeline to the plant. Mattawoman Energy acquired the service of Tri-Hydro Corporation to calculate the necessary dewatering rates. It employed the same company to study the dewatering amount associated with its reclaimed water pipelines in the December 2016 request to the Commission. PPRP and MDE reviewed the Tri-Hydro report and concurred with this methodology and results. Because the calculated temporary dewatering activity will exceed the COMAR duration and gallons per day thresholds, they have imposed new licensing conditions Q1 through Q12 to attach to the CPCN in mail log number 232148. Mattawoman filed copies of notifications it sent to nearby landowners in mail log number 231956. PPRP, MDE, and staff agreed that it has met the environmental article notification requirement. Staff agrees with PPRP and MDE's comments and thus would recommend that the Commission approve the CPCN amendments subject to the conditions proposed by PPRP and MDE.
Thank you, Mr. Zong. We'll now turn to counsel for the Maryland Office of People's Counsel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The Office of People's Counsel supports recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next turn to counsel for the Power Plant Research Program.
Mr. Tolson, your mic is muted.
It's unmuted now, I believe. I'm sorry. Steve Tolson for PPRP. Also on the call are John Grace from the Maryland Department of the Environment and Matt Irby, who is a contractor in support of PPRP. Neither DNR nor MDE have anything to add to the letter that's already on file in this case, but all parties are available for any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Tolson. Are there any additional state agencies wishing to be recognized? Hearing none, we'll turn to other interested parties and private citizens. We'll begin with Ms. Janet Gingold, if you wish to make any comments. And you will need to unmute.
My name is Janet Gingold. Can you hear me now?
We could hear you now, Ms. Gingold.
I'm speaking today on behalf of the Sierra Club, both the Maryland chapter and the Prince George's County group. We urge you to deny the request by Mattawoman to the plan PowerPoint.
Ms. Gingold?
In addition to my statement, we have submitted. Yes?
Ms. Gingold, can you hear me?
Sorry?
Sorry, you're breaking up. I think you have a relatively poor connection. If it's possible for you to turn off your camera, we'd be able to hear you a little better, I think.
Great, thanks. Is that better?
That sounds better, yes.
Okay, so the Sierra Club urges you to deny this request to authorize dewatering while constructing the natural gas pipeline from Charles County to the planned power plant in Brandywine. In addition to my statement, we have submitted comments from 65 respondents to an action alert that was active from November 1st to November 2nd, expressing concerns about the effects of dewatering on the local environment, as well as the broader issues of environmental justice and the need to decrease our greenhouse gas emissions. The proposed dewatering would withdraw water from the shallow water table aquifer in the Zekiah Swamp and Mattawoman Creek aquifers. The pipeline would run adjacent to and through parts of Cedarville State Forest. Construction there would adversely affect the experience of many Maryland residents who visit Cedarville for hiking, biking, birding, hunting, fishing, and camping, and just to watch the trees grow. These outdoor activities are all the more important for area residents of all ages as the pandemic curtails indoor social activities. From the information provided in Mattawoman's request, it is not clear how the water withdrawal and replacement might affect the operation of the nearby Joseph Manning Fish Hatchery, which produces fish to stock our waters for Maryland anglers. The hatchery's tanks depend on both well water and surface reservoirs. The planned pipeline would pass through 5 areas of concern, including green infrastructure hubs, habitats for forest interior dwelling species, sensitive species project review areas, and a wetland of special state concern. It is unclear from the numbers provided how these water withdrawals and replacements will affect the resident flora and fauna. The timing of withdrawal with respect to seasonal changes in plant growth and animal life cycles and possible concurrent unpredictable factors such as extreme precipitation events might also affect the impact of dewatering, and these are not addressed in the document. It is also unclear how removing water from the aquifer and replacing it into local drainage ditches and swales might impact water quality, especially given the proximity of the Joint Base Andrews Superfund site and the Brandywine coal ash landfill, and other local sources of air pollution and runoff that might have settled in swales and ditches. This decision will have ramifications beyond the impacts of temporary dewatering. Infrastructure built now will determine how electricity is generated for decades. Maryland residents count on the Public Service Commission to make decisions about power plants in the long-term public interest. The world is considerably different today than it was 5 for the Mattawoman power plant was granted. With the effects of climate change increasingly apparent and pollution-related racial health disparities laid bare by the COVID-19 pandemic, it becomes increasingly clear that Maryland needs more solar panels and wind turbines, not another gas-fired power plant. Another source of pollution in this majority-minority community already overburdened with air and water pollution will only exacerbate the long-standing effects of systemic racism. When you walk through the woods in Cedarville State Forest and come to an area that was recently clear-cut for lumber, you can't help thinking about the importance of environmental stewardship and mitigating the effects humans have on the natural systems that sustain us. We can't keep degrading our environment faster than it can recover. Whether or not we live in the immediately affected area, we all use electricity and we all breathe the same air. We don't want our electricity to come from fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases and fine particulates, especially at the expense of our neighbors who already live amid a cluster of pollution sources. We depend on the PSC to ensure a more just and sustainable system for the future. The Sierra Club urges you not to enable the building of new fossil fuel infrastructure by allowing this amendment to the Mattawoman CPCN. Please use all tools at your disposal to enable a just transition to clean, renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gingold. We'll now hear from Ms. Ruth Alice White. And Ms. Gingold, if I could ask you to please go back on mute. Thank you.
Trying to start my video. Hello, my name is Ruth Alice White. I'm with the Howard County Climate Action in Howard County, and we signed on to written comments that were submitted. We also endorsed the concerns of Clean Air Prince George's and the concerns of the Sierra Club, which we just heard, and others that have concerns about the pipeline through the state park and the impact of the dewatering plans. We want to point out that the PSC has not considered the climate impacts of adding yet another frack gas power plant to the Maryland grid at this time, a time in which the International Panel on Climate Change states that to avoid catastrophic climate crisis, we need to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The climate clock in New York City gives us 7 years to do this. However, in 2018, the IPCC said we had 12 years, which means that we have about 10 years now. So somewhere between 10 and 7 years. Either way, we should not be building new fossil fuel power plants that will operate for 30 or 40 more years. We have to stop investing in fossil fuels that will cause the species extinction that's happening now and that are putting the entire world population at risk. The law mandates that the Maryland study getting to zero greenhouse gas emissions from electricity generation by 2040. Building a new gas-fired power plant to generate electricity that will last 30 to 40 years is patently opposed to working in good faith on meeting state targets for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. In 2019, the Public Service Commission stated that it does not consider the climate impacts of its decision. The commission could remedy that grave error, an error that the Maryland legislature was poised to correct in a bill in the 2020 legislature, SB 656, which passed the state Senate and whose consideration the House of Delegates had to cut short because of the pandemic. It is past time for the PSC to align its work with the work of the Maryland Climate Change Commission and the work of the governor's staff, who are developing a Maryland climate plan, which may have goals even more ambitious than those set by the legislature in the 2019 Clean Energy Jobs Act. And it is crucially past time for the PSC and the rest of the Maryland government to start considering the cumulative impacts of fossil fuel pollution and other toxic industrial processes on the health and welfare of Maryland communities and Maryland citizens heavily impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. We'll now hear from Ms. Vontasha Sims. And Ms. White, please use your microphone.
Hello?
Please proceed.
Can you hear me? Okay, yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Tasha Sims. I'm calling here on behalf of Jaya's work group. I'm also a activist here in Charles County, Maryland. And I'm a resident here in Charles County, Maryland. I just want to thank everyone for the comments firstly.
Sims, Ms. Sims, we could, your volume is going in and out. Perhaps you could speak closer to the microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's much better. Much better. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yes, yes, my name is Tasha Sims. I'm actually calling here from Charles County, Maryland. I have a nonprofit entitled Jaya's Work Group. I'm also a mental health and wellness activist here, and along with environmental activists here in Charles County and the state of Maryland as well. I have several major concerns when it comes to this additional pipeline here for the Mattawoman Energy Plant. One of them being there's already an existing pipeline that runs through Charles County, the Code Point pipeline. That's a pipeline in which we are not sure exactly where that pipeline runs. We know that pipeline, we're not sure how many times that pipeline has been checked, if that pipeline has any leaks or anything along those nature. We don't know of the cumulative impact when it comes to that pipeline actually being here in Charles County as well. Also, I'm a member with the Alice Foundation Adopt a Stream here in Charles County. So Jaya's work group has now become a steward of the Zakiah Swamp area. Also, the Zakiah Swamp has been also just granted to be a rural legacy area here in Charles County. Along with the Mattawoman Energy, along with the Mattawoman Creek as well, we are also in the process of granting the Mattawoman Creek to be a rural legacy area as well. So when we have pipelines running through those areas, that's of grave concern to myself and also to the members here in Charles County. I don't feel that Charles County has been given the proper opportunity nor the proper information or the proper research to make an informed decision about these activities that's been going on through the Public Service Commission and the MDE, and also with Mattawoman Energy as well. We have people of indigenous, native people, native tribes, African American people who live in those areas who are affected by the impacts of the environmental hazards. We call them and we consider them to be sacrifice zones. That's a grave injustice when it comes to the environment and the people who live in that area, who have to breathe that air. We have a very high rate of asthma, a very high rate of cancer, and the people in that area only continue to suffer. We here in Charles County, we are south of that southern Prince George's County area. And I feel that in a great way, we have been left out of that picture altogether. We just spoke with our county commissioner just yesterday. He has not really been aware of all of the activities that has been going on right here within Charles County. We feel that we need adequate time, if not 6 months, if not a year, in order for us to be able to make an informed decision, to be able to make sure that our citizens are safe there, to make sure cumulative impact studies are done there. And also, Charles just signed on to the county by county 2018 Paris, which we have made a commitment to go to renewable energies here in Charles County and throughout the Southern Maryland area. Also, we want to make sure that we're converting those fossil fuel plants into renewable energy. There's no need to build another fossil fuel plant in such an area that's already inundated with big polluters. There are ways to be more innovative. There are ways to move forward to renewable energies and to moving those plants into solar, geothermal energy, wind energy, and even to hydrokinetic energies. We are moving out of that fossil fuel stage. We are moving into the future. And just to have an idea that something like this is even going to be proposed in this area, it's just totally, it's beyond belief to me. It's totally beyond belief to me. We will continue to fight this. We're not going to remain silent on this issue. We want the people in that area to be safe. We're concerned about our health issue. We're concerned about our air here. We're concerned about the water that we're eating here. We're concerned about our children and our future here. So I would ask this commission to vote no. I would also give the Charles County residents and the Charles County professionals and the Charles County experts the opportunity to be included in this entire process, because it not only affects those in Prince George's County, it affects us in Charles County as well. So I thank you all for your time, and you have a great day.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Sims. We next turn to Dr. Henry Cole. Dr. Cole, if you could unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I'm going to go off the screen so I can read some notes. And I am Dr. Henry Cole, a co-founder of Clean Air Prince George's. I'm an environmental and atmospheric scientist with more years of expertise than I like to brag about. And I'm here on behalf of the many organizations and persons who signed on to the Clean Air Prince George's letter to the Commission and the accompanying report by Downstream Strategies. I have to tell you, there is a great deal of concern among area residents and environmental organizations across the state. I want to say a few general comments, and then I'll get specifically into the dewatering issue. But I wanted to endorse what some of the speakers have just said, particularly Vantasha Sims. I think laid out a very compelling case for at least a postponement of this decision until we really know what the impacts will be. Secondly, I want to say that, imagine if you were living in a community already having 4 fossil fuel power plants within your area. And imagine if there was a proposal made way back in 2013, got a certificate in 2015, and you look at that site and there's nothing on it, despite clear language to me in the original certificate, which requires expeditious and continuous construction on the site. There is nothing on that site but a few drums and logs from what we can see. There's been no construction. So this leaves in limbo a community. And I have to say that in the last 5 years, since that initial certificate, so much has changed in the world. Climate change has gotten far more damaging and devastating than it was back in 2015. Think about what's happening in California, the record number of forest fires. Think of the Gulf Coast, a record number of damaging hurricanes, with more to come apparently, all due to climate change, the warming of the atmosphere. I want to say one thing that has been neglected, sadly, by all of the agencies involved from the state. The power plant research program failed to do an analysis of the air pollution associated with 2 to 3 years of construction period traffic. Imagine the congestion along Brandywine Road. This plant is located 1/2 mile to the east of the Brandywine Elementary School. It's an elementary school. That school is located at the intersection of Missouri Avenue and Brandywine Road. What about the safety concerns of increased traffic? What about the impact of more traffic, of diesel trucks bringing equipment? Diesel exhaust, a known carcinogen. What are we subjecting people in that community to that has not been investigated by any of the agencies in terms of the air pollution impact of construction era traffic? I really think this whole thing has to be thrown out. If Madam Woman wants to reapply, let them do it, and let them do all of the analyses that have not been done, particularly those which affect people's health. Now I'm going to get on to the specifics of this amendment. Downstream Strategies Review states and I'll refer to the document that was submitted to you. The Downstream Strategy Report states that critically relevant information is missing from Mattawomen's request to amend its CPCN to the extent that precludes the Commission approving requested amendment at this time. The Commission should require Madam Woman to resubmit its amendment and request and address that the issues identified in this report are fully addressed, and also provide the public an opportunity to review and update our comments. COMAR 26.17.06.06.8 states an appropriation may only be granted where the where there is no unreasonable impact on the waters of the state. In making this determination, consideration may be given to protection of existing water uses, land values, investments, and enterprises. The Downstream Strategies Report fully documents that Mattawoman Energy has not met these critical requirements. Excuse me. Mattawoman's application and the accompanying report from Tri-Hydro failed to make the requisite demonstration regarding the reasonableness of the impacts to Maryland's waters. With regard to dewatering activity itself, Mattawoman fails to clearly or comprehensively identify impacted watercourses or identify the impacts of dewatering on impacted streams and wetlands. Moreover, the timing of dewatering is not considered, but could greatly affect the impact that dewatering activity will have on local water-dependent species, including the American brook lamprey and other native fish, amphibians, and reptiles. The PSC should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify how and where, in what volumes, pumped water will be returned to streams and wetlands, and to identify how water pumped into drainage ditches will not only damage wetlands, et cetera, and streams, but what about damage to roads, railroad tracks, or nearby properties, even before the water reaches streams and wetlands? Now, I think we may have Jennifer Newland available. She's one of the experts who put together the downstream strategies report. She's a specialist on ecological and other impacts of water-related projects, and hopefully she can answer any questions that she has. Finally, let me say that you are the Public Service Commission. I emphasize the word service and public. Secondly, a certificate of public convenience and necessity. I would urge the Commission to take those words very seriously. Is this project really in the public interest? Do we really need the power? Aren't there better alternatives? And what about the convenience? What about the safety during the construction period of this project? How convenient will it be to people who live in the Brandywine area? I apologize for the hoarseness in my voice, but I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. If you could please mute your microphone. This time we'll turn to the representatives of the Greenbelt Climate Action Network. I believe we have two, Ms. Maureen Fine or Ms. Maurice Chen.
I'm Maureen Fine. Thank you very much for hearing me this morning. The Greenbelt Climate Action Network urges you to deny Mattawoman Energy Center's request to allow dewatering for the construction of their gas pipeline. The planned route for the pipeline passes through the Cedarville State Forest, located at the headwaters of Maryland's largest freshwater swamp. The Cedarville State Forest, Zekiah Swamp, and Zekiah Bog are a haven for wildlife, including rare carnivorous plants, sphagnum moss, and a unique array of other plants that are very finely attuned to their watery habitat. At Cedarville State Forest, hikers and birders like myself and other nature lovers can enjoy 50 species of trees, springs and streams, and about 80 bird species, some that migrate from South America. These birds breed and nest generally between April and August, and their nests may be on the ground, in dense grass, in shrubs, or in tall trees. What, if any, precautions would be taken during pipeline construction to comply with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act? Would the birds be considered an accidental taking? Trout Unlimited notes that the removal of large quantities of water and vegetation that accompanies pipeline construction impacts water quality and diminishes habitat for fish, macroinvertebrates, and other aquatic species. Through excavation, compaction, disturbance of soil substrates, and placement of structures, water flow patterns are compromised. This is from Trout Unlimited. It boggles my mind that DNR and MDE, with whom we entrust our natural areas, would rubber stamp a project that would so greatly impact this unique and fragile wetland ecosystem. We're in a sixth mass extinction, where as a result of human activity, we're seeing alarming declines of numerous families of plants and animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, and invertebrates. Can't we just say no? Under the Clean Water Act, the MDE is authorized to use its permitting authority, relying on clean water standards and public input. The community of stakeholders of Cedarville State Forest have been left out of the process. So here we are in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Our planet is facing climate catastrophe, and public concern for racial and environmental justice has been heightened. There is no justification for this project. The Greenbelt Climate Action Network supports energy efficiency and renewable energy, green jobs, and a just and sustainable future for all. Please deny authorization for dewatering that would enable construction of an unwanted, unneeded, and unjust pipeline infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fine. We'll now turn to Ms. Mildred Crowell.
Oh, sorry. Hi, this is, I have not had a chance to speak. This is Maurice Chan or Clarissa Salcedo.
Thank you, sir. You have two names on your screen. Who are you?
Yeah, my maiden name is Marie. My nickname is Maurice. Maybe my email showed that, but my full name is Clarissa Chan Salcedo.
Thank you for clarifying that. And you're also with the Greenbelt Climate Action Network?
I am.
Okay.
I just recently joined. Yes.
Thank you. If you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Yes, I don't have any prepared statements for you, but I just wanted to speak as far as what I know and what I have learned. So I just wanted to let you know that I have been a resident of Prince George's County and living in the Brandywine community area for 19 years. In this 19 years that I lived here, I have never heard of power plants being implemented in my community. I was just recently informed about this just a few weeks ago about the 4 power plants that already exist. And now a new power plant that is being implemented, a 5th power plant. This concerns me as a person living in this community. I also wanted to let you know that this matter is very important to me, that I took a day off from work just to be able to speak with you. I wanted to just give you like a picture. I wanted to paint a picture of my community. In my community, there is more than half of the population that live in the Brandywine area is African American. I also wanted to let you know that where the power plant is being installed, there's a 1 mile across that is a Brandywine Elementary School. We also have a state park that is going to be affected with this. And I don't know if any one of you here have looked at the Brandywine area, but I recently passed by and I saw a new housing development that is being built 1 mile across that, which is trying to build 300,000 minimum housing development there. Also, there are communities and people living in that area that still has well water that they do not get water tested. Those well waters are not submitted to water testing. So these facts I know. I also know as a nurse, and I know the health impact of the air pollution, the water pollution, the pollution that the fossil fuel is going to cause us. In US alone, there is 4 million new cases of asthma-related disease in the US alone, contributed by only air pollution. The air pollution that we emit here in Maryland contributes to the pollution in our Chesapeake Bay. The pollution that is emitted in this power plant not only will affect the community here, not only will affect myself. I have 3 children under the age of 12. Not only it will affect us, but it affects you as well. This is a global health issue, not just our community. There is the health impact related to this air and water pollution causes cancer, as I already mentioned about asthma. And asthma, when you have respiratory issues, that also contributes to your heart problems. So heart disease is also a factor here in our community, as well as increase in neurological diseases, such as Alzheimer's here in our community. Although the age population here in my community is about 40 above is the majority, we have a growing population and children come here in our community. We have a busy community now. As I read that the Mattawoman power plant was the location where they have chosen. I read in the paper and that the reason why they chose the Brandywine area as their location was because it was an industrial area. And I don't know if you've seen Brandywine. It is not an industrial area. We have communities. It's a bustling community. It's very active, and the traffic is already beginning to increase in that area. So I urge you, for people that are here, to hear what the community has to say, and how this impacts not only us and you as well, and urge you to stop the implementation of the power plant. Thank you.
Thank you for comments, Ms. Salcedo. We'll now turn to Mildred Kremelmeyer with the Southern Maryland Audubon Society. Are you with us, ma'am? Okay, we'll move on. If she joins us, we'll bring her back into the loop. Ms. Joyce Dowling, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for hearing me today. I'm here because I'm opposed to the pipeline permit amendment happening today. I'm a resident of Brandywine, where the Cedarville State Park is located and the proposed plant will be. I understand that part of your mission statement is to make sure the public is informed. As an educator, I also think that's important. I am active in the community, and I didn't learn about it until September 29th, and have not had sufficient time to review the entire 161-page document. I want to let you know that the residents at the Cedarville Trailer Park, just yards from the planned pipeline, have not been notified. They are not the landowners, but they own the trailers and they use well water. I don't know how many people are there, but there are 271 sites. We have been unable to determine the impact this will have on their wells, but suspect it could impact them. It's also good to see your mission includes developing and promoting activities that encourage public trust and confidence, and serving the public interest through a commitment to professionalism, diversity, mutual respect, and ethical conduct, as I think having a public education session on how this pipeline could affect residents and postponing the decision until the community has a chance to learn about it would be a good step in that direction. We are a very diverse community. I have taken a petition from people living in the area at the new Southern Area Aquatic Recreation Center, and I've participated in street-side community education events about this power plant. And the majority of the people who live in the area are not in favor of it. The governor's climate change plan would be much more successful without it. I was unaware of a hearing about this pipeline with MDE, or I would have attended it. Brandywine has been the subject of a lot of environmental degradation, and this is one more on top of it, especially since it involves one of our precious state parks. My requests are that you provide more time before making a decision, provide community education so we know what to expect if this project takes place, and give us time to understand the impacts this will have on the lives of those of us who live in Brandywine, as a pipeline through our community is no small matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dowling. We'll hear from Ms. Judy Allen Leventhal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you concerning this request. My name is Judith Allen Leventhal. I'm president of the Greater Accokeek Civic Association. Our organization commented on the modification of the Man Woman Energy Center request before the PSC in Brandywine on July 23rd, 2019. And the Akakeek community has kept informed about plans for this facility since April 26, 2017, when Mattawoman representatives provided our membership an overview of the project under their CPCN approval granted in 2015. I understand that the scope of today's administrative meeting is narrowly focused on the proposed dewatering plans, but this new permutation, as with earlier ones, presents serious omissions consistent with a history of misinformation about Mattawoman Energy discovered in the course of litigation and lobbying that our community undertook in opposing the now defunct proposed Charles Compressor Station. So while we live in Akakeek, well, first of all, I want to say, well, I'll put it this way. While we live in Akakeek, we share the air, the climate, and the concerns, especially those raised by previous speakers, Gingold, Cole, Sims, White, Fine, Salcido, and Dowling. We're also wanted to point out that we definitely share the concerns described in great detail in the downstream strategies review of Mattawoman's Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity Amendment request that you've reviewed. So I want to focus on the dewatering. In addition to the issues outlined in the report by downstream strategies, I have several specific concerns. First, insufficient public notice and participation requirements. The Maryland Department of Environment approved Mattawoman's water appropriation and use request without adequate public input and, to my knowledge, without public hearing. Given the sensitive biological and natural areas impacted, this seems a serious oversight in protecting the welfare of residents, flora and fauna, wildlife, with potential long-term irrevocable impact. For example, the dewatering schedule should account for the seasonality sensitivity mentioned by some of the previous speakers. Also, that the proposed pipeline travels through Cedarville Forest should require some kind of formal input by the Department of Natural Resources, given the importance of that natural setting for the variety of recreational outdoor activities also outlined by others. A more specific point I wanted to make is the impact on local wells. The letter dated October 23rd, 2020 from the Lips, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, Mathias to Andrew Johnston of the PSC neglects to include potential impacts on area shallow wells and includes reference only to deep wells that draw from aquifers, they quote, far below the superficial aquifer from which construction groundwater will be removed. It's important to residents such as myself who rely on shallow wells. For my household, the potential impacts of both deep and shallow wells need to be considered in the dewatering analysis. A third point, environmental and social justice. The ongoing lack of open process about this project violates the January 1, 2019 informal resolution agreement to the Title VI complaint that was initiated in May 2016. In that the PSC agreed to, quote, provide an opportunity for meaningful and full participation by communities affected, designate a community liaison officer, identify actual community members and community organizations within the affected communities, among other specific commitments. Technically and deeply ironically, this agreement may exclude this case number 9330, the current energy request. However, I've got to emphasize to us, this request rests at the confluence of what we would call right, wrong, and legal. The multiple and cumulative impacts of the amendment request further and require further and measured evaluation, and I urge you to deny this request. Such a project runs contrary to the mandated Maryland statewide initiative to work to improve air quality, especially critical to Brandywine residents, whose air quality is ranked second most polluted in Maryland. The multiple power plants within a very small surrounding area have cumulative impacts, as has been mentioned by previous speakers, that have not been adequately considered. These affect us all because we share the same air, the same climate, the same concerns about our health, safe sources of energy, and global warming. Thank you very much for this chance to speak to you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. We'll next turn to Ms. Alveda Addison.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Alvita Addison. I am a resident of Prince George's County and a member of several organizations, local organizations. too many to name, really, to tell you the truth. I've listened to both sides of this argument, and I am very concerned. I'm concerned because I found that there seems to be a lack of community input, research, and willingness to make an informed decision. It seems as though we are moving in the wrong direction. We need to really consider the impact, the health impact of people. We need to consider the health impact of the planet. We really need to understand how air pollution and water pollution really affect our local and national areas. We cannot continue to make decisions without research-backed facts. We can look at COVID-19 and see where we are right now by people denying what really actually exists in terms of that disease. We're creating another disease by using fossil fuels and energy that will just create destruction to the planet. We're talking about risk of methane leaks and explosions, emissions of more greenhouse gases. We are also talking about putting a plant near an elementary school and the long-term health effects, as, I'm sorry, I can't say your name, the nurse before us has stated. I urge you all, please, please take more time to look at the impact. Be leaders in making choices that will have a positive effect on us for decades to come. Show our kids that our leadership cares about them and their future, that we need more research, we need more community impact. I mean, we're sitting in an area with like, how many universities that have atmospheric science and environmental science, people who are objective, who don't have any investment interest in this particular issue, that can give you objective point of view about what's really happening here. We've heard testimony from nurses, from scientists, and from the companies. And I just do not see the benefit of having fossil fuel plant anymore. I'm just a regular resident, but I am going to educate the people in my community, the people where I work at a university, the people all over Prince George's County, and as many people in Maryland as possible about this issue so that we can make informed, factual decisions. And that's what really counts. So I urge you, really, I don't see where a delay is needed. I think it needs to be denied. This power plant does not need to exist. I think we need to go to more lower cost and renewable energy and less need for fossil fuels. I respectfully ask you and urge you, please give the community an opportunity to really look at what's going on here. Thank you very much. And you, everyone here, have a wonderful day, and I hope you are healthy and safe.
Thank you, Edison. We'll now turn to Ms. Bonnie Bick. Well, Ms. Bick,
Excuse me, with the delay in unmuting.
That's all right. We could hear you now.
Thank you. My name is Bonnie Bick, and I am representing the Mattawoman Watershed Society, which I co-founded. And we have been against this proposal since its initiation. And in the last 5 years, since the PFC granted the certificate of need and necessity, so much has changed. I will just mention that we are now in a climate crisis emergency that we were aware of coming, but we thought it was going to come more slowly. And it's also the mention of the great extinction, the sixth great extinction. So we're getting all the signals that we must start moving in in a more thoughtful direction to protect our future. And I also want to mention the issue of our greater awareness now of environmental justice. It's something that we've been aware of for a long time, just as the other issues I mentioned, but it's come to a crucial point where we must recognize that we cannot continue in the direction we are. And this is a sacrifice zone because it already has 4 fossil fuel power plants. And I wanted to support, the Mattawoman Watershed Society would like to say that we requested, along with the many other groups, a delay in this hearing because the information that was presented in the document is not exactly user-friendly. And the citizens need time to understand what's going on. And we needed that delay in order to better understand how to address this dewatering situation. I want to support the downstream strategy report and ask every person on the Public Service Commission to study that in light of the 3 issues that I mentioned: the climate, environmental justice, and extinction. Because it's the future of the earth and our society that is at risk here. And I would also like to say that MDE held a hearing, and I just found out about it today. And it's outrageous that the Mattawoman Watershed Society would definitely have participated had we known. And as far as I know, there has been no DNR hearing, and there definitely should be one. 1 mile of disruption in Cedarville State Park is unacceptable. And my issue is the fisheries at Mattawoman. And I like to say that Mattawoman is at the tipping point. It cannot take this continued pollution. And just a few years ago, federal and state and federal organizations produced a document that I sent a link to Susan Thomas about, but I don't know if it got into the record because I didn't hear back from her. But the Mattawoman being on the tipping point, all federal and state agencies got together and produced a document saying that the case to preserve and protect Mattawoman Creek. And the fishery is just below Washington. It's a world famous fishery, and it really cannot continue to take these kinds of pollution impacts. I'd also like to say that I hope that the PFC will deny this request, and if Mattawoman Panda Energy wants to reapply, it's their prerogative, but reapply under the present conditions, not under the conditions that were happened in 2013. It's very important that there's more outreach. So many people don't know that this is going on, and this is happening under the fog of COVID, which also limits public participation. And so I'm very clear, and the Mattawoman Watershed Society is, that this is not the time for the Public Service Commission to allow such a major amendment to carry through. It must be denied. And I would suggest that Panda, Mattawoman Energy sell the property to a solar company if they don't have a solar arm. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bick. If you could Please return yourself to mute. Thank you. We'll now turn to Ms. Sherry Burton-Stein.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yes.
Okay. My name is Sherry Burton-Stein. I'm a resident of Prince George's County, and I am. I don't think that this current dewatering effort for this project should move forward. I believe that it will cause a source of air pollution with the surrounding community, as well as the risks of methane leaks and explosions, the proximity to the elementary school, as well as the degradation of air and water quality in Prince George's County, particularly in the surrounding community. I believe it is an environmental justice issue, particularly in that community, mostly African American community, already overburdened with air and water pollution. And I don't think this should be put off. I think it should not move forward. And with that, I am complete with my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Burton-Stein. We'll next turn to Ms. Sheena Washington.
Hi, good morning. Greetings to the members of the Maryland Public Service Commission. My name is Sheena Washington, and I'm speaking as a concerned Maryland citizen. I first acknowledge that the land on which I reside is colonized land stolen from the Piscataway Indigenous Nation. Today, I stand as a water protector, and I assert that water is life. I stand to protect the natural environment that sustains our ecosystems, which contribute to our clean air and water. I purchased a home in southern Prince George's County on Piscataway Indigenous land 7 years ago. I chose to live in Prince George's County because it is a community where I feel safe. It is a community where Black and Brown people are thriving. It's a source of pride living here. However, today I'm concerned as I learn how my community is being targeted with environmental racism. The members of this commission need to know that it is unacceptable that our community has become a dumping ground for power plants, toxic runoff, and polluted air. We already are living in the vicinity of the Air Force DRMO Superfund site, and today our commission is voting on additional environmental destruction in my community. Please leave this land alone. We do not approve any plans to disrupt natural water systems in our community. We do not approve of this commission's plan to poison Black and Brown residents with more environmental pollution. We do not approve of this commission's endorsement to uproot Cedarville State Forest for the purpose of disrupting our national groundwater tables. This forest provides green recreational spaces for hiking and camping enjoyed by our families. More importantly, the forest trees and plants filter the air and water in our neighboring communities. We do not approve of the pipeline. Please leave this land alone. Shame on every one of you who voted to endanger the health of our communities during a time when Black and Brown people are dying in alarming numbers from COVID. Shame on every one of you who voted to allow 5 fossil fuel power plants to be built within 13 miles of the Brandywine community, where 70% of the residents are Black and Brown people. Why didn't you choose Annapolis or Bethesda as the dumping ground? Would you consider a proposal to disrupt Quiet Waters Park in Annapolis with a pipeline? Would you consider watering and disrupting the groundwater and environment in Quiet Waters Park? Or does that community deserve beautiful parks, trees, and environmental protections more than mine? How dare you for the audacity of your blatant environmental racism? We will continue to raise awareness within our communities. If you think that we will allow this to pass quietly without raising the alarm, you are all mistaken. This COVID crisis has brought our communities together, and we will continue to fight against the injustice that your commission has allowed. I submit this letter in humble respect for the land on which I live. I will fight to protect our water and this earth. I ask the members of this commission to vote against the pipeline and plans to disrupt our groundwater and state forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. We'll next turn to Ms. Liz Feigner.
I hope you can hear me. I may have to turn my video off. I had some prepared remarks, but Ms. Washington spoke for me, so I will leave it at that. What she said is just incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next turn to Mr. David Cantor.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Sir, yes, sir, Mr. Cantor, we could hear you.
Hang on one moment, please. I apologize. Okay, thank you for letting me speak today. So I live in Hughesville, Maryland, about 10, 12 miles south of Cedarville State Park. I concur with the representatives of the Sierra Club, as well as Bonnie Bick, Fantasha Sims, and basically everyone else opposing the request for permanent amendment. Please deny the request. I use Cedarville 2 to 4 times per week. I started as a scout leader, or actually at that point, a scout dad. I became a scout leader and I continue to use the property with the scouts. I am not speaking for the scouts, so that's not what I'm here for. But I am an environmentalist too, and I concur with basically any of the environmentalist comments before and after me today. I think that's a fair thing to say. I've been riding and camping at Cedarville for at least 8 years. I have 2 Eagle Scouts that have been doing the same. In fact, I was just there yesterday. I had a nice ride. It's a little muddy, but it was great. Had a season pass there for parking pass for 4 to 5 years. And I think it would really be wrong to put a gas pipeline through this area. It would be detrimental to the health of the community as well as the users of the park. The reason? These pipelines leak. Okay, the frack gas pipelines leak. They always do. We're always told they won't, and they always do. The worst part, of course, is where the frack gas originates, which of course will not be where we're going to be. Okay, but all you're doing is inviting bad things to happen: leakage, water damage, water table damage at the source. The more you frack, the worse it gets at the source. We are creating a problem at the source as well as in our own community. So again, no matter how much the builders tell you they won't leak, they always do. Putting in this line is wrong. It'll feed yet another power plant that will be placed in a primarily African-American community, and it's not the second or third, but the 5th power plant. You've already heard that. This really is outrageous. It's not acceptable. We're better than this. This is Maryland. It's not Alabama or Mississippi. Sorry if anybody's from there, but you know, in Maryland, we do care about our people of color. We try to do what's right, but sometimes we just don't, and this is a time to change that. Getting back to the fracking, you need to understand the fracking damages water tables and simply makes people sick, people and animals. It's not happening here. We're causing it to happen somewhere else, and someday it'll happen here too. Yes, Southern Maryland is above a potential frack gas source. It's deep and it's costly to get to it, but eventually someone will try. They will trash our already scant water supply, because I don't know if you know about this, but Southern Maryland, especially Charles County, is on a limited aquifer system, and they will leave behind fields of toxic and carcinogenic chemicals. Maryland's certainly better than that. Please deny this request, and thank you for your consideration in this critical matter. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. King. We'll next turn to Mr. Carlos Childs.
Oh, hello. Can you all hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. Yes, my name is Carlos Childs. I'm from Charles County, Maryland. I'm against the pipeline because, one, I think Maryland should not be investing at all into fracking, into anything that's not renewable resources, solar power, wind power. I agree with almost everybody who spoke earlier. Bonnie Bick, Tasha Sims made excellent points. I think right now, I think it's weird that they're even holding this hearing now and it's not been scheduled for later on in the year, especially while everyone's focusing on the election right now. Everyone's trying to figure out COVID, their personal health, and their personal finances. I think this being pushed now is kind of trying to do it a very sneaky and fast-paced way to cover up the actual damage that's going to be done if this pipeline is actually executed. Also, I think there needs to be more of a information out about how this is going to affect Charles County specifically, and also hearing that this pipeline or the fracking station itself is going to be near an elementary school is just horrible for their health, and then the health of millions of other kids who will go to that school or live in the surrounding areas. That's all I have to say. Again, I urge you all to deny the request for the pipeline. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. I have reached the end of my list of persons who have notified the commission they wish to speak. I'll go back to Ms. Mildred Kreimelmeyer if she is available at this point. If not, I will ask if there are any other interested parties that wish to make brief comments before we hear from the company.
Hello, this is Joanne Flynn.
Hello, Ms. Flynn, if you'd like to make some comments.
Yes, first off, I really support all the heartfelt comments and truth that has been stated so far. I've been involved with this issue. I've lived in the area for 32 years, and I've worked my way by just showing up to be president of the Greater Baden-Aquasco Citizens Association and the Black Swamp Creek Land Trust. And we're looking to protect our communities and have good communities and healthy communities. So I've been involved with this power plant issue. Well, there's been four over the years since I've been here. The first one was the Cedarville plant, and then the Billings plant and the Keys Energy plant and Mattawoman all came in rather quickly, and nobody knew the process. None of us knew the process. And I think the one issue I think we have to focus on is notification. All these things that happened at the state level, we haven't gotten proper notification. So I didn't get notification for this amendment. We've had 3 legal cases concerning this Mattawoman energy plant. And so I ought to be on a persons of record list, or I showed up for mandatory hearings at the county level, but our county does not keep us informed. And these projects are not required to put up signage as are the county projects. And that's how we find out about a lot of them. But so I just wanted to support this and mention that the notification is terrible. And you have to think sometimes that perhaps that is a little bit intentional because they want their projects to go through. Our politicians want the tax revenue from these plants, but we are concerned about where we live. And it just everything that anyone has said so far is absolutely true. And I do not support, or I think you should deny this amendment. And as others have said, if the company still wishes to do something, they should be required to reapply under the current conditions. There's so many things going on right now that it's just unfathomable that you would let this move forward. Presently, I'm most active, I think, well, I don't know, most active. I'm completely torn in many different directions, but we have a Brandywine revitalization plan going on, and that was started in 2010. Well, in 2013, and there was nothing in that plan about power plants. And this is for the village of Brandywine, where Mattawoman has purchased the property. There was no site. There was no selection or site analysis done, or which I think is required, but none of that was done. And the other part, so they were in competition with the Keys Energy plant at the time, and we thought that there was only going to be one plant of the two. We didn't want either, but as soon as Keys Energy got approved, where no one showed up for a public hearing because they were not notified, and it was happening right in Brandywine. Anyway, the other plant continued. They opened the door for Keys Energy, and here comes Mattawoman right along with it. So there's been a lot of injustice here, and they want to locate that plant right in the village of Brandywine, and as others have said, near the elementary school, across the street from the EPA cleanup site, within a mile of the other two existing plants, and a little further from the others. So we would like you to deny this amendment for all these conditions, and the people have not been heard from. We need better notification of all the state projects that are going to affect people. I guess I've said enough because and I support the excellent testimony of all my neighbors and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flynn, and we're hearing from you today. That is one of the purposes of this meeting. We'll next turn to Mr. Noah Waters. Dr. Waters, would you like to speak? You're on mute, sir. We can't hear you.
Yes. Have feedback.
You might have another device on open.
Okay.
Are you on the phone as well?
No.
If the caller with the 301 area code could please mute themselves. Or Joey, if you could mute that caller. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Waters, you may proceed.
Okay. Well, let me try to. Is that okay?
Fix the problem.
Okay, great. Okay, my name is Dr. Waters. I thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a resident of Eagle Harbor, Maryland. It's one of the last predominantly Black waterfront communities, African-American waterfront communities in the nation. And it is also beside one of the power plants of mention, Chalk Point, which is not by happenstance. And I own property across the Brandywine Road facility, which is also another predominantly Black community. I again ask, and I concur with Dr. Cole, and I concur with all the other speakers, that the amendment be denied for dewatering. And I think of all of the citizens who expect a voice in these types of matters, who really do not probably know what is going on. And when these types of facilities are built, and when the infrastructure takes place, and when you literally uproot communities to put in pipelines, and this happens, and they speak, they say, oh, what has happened? But when I think about the Public Service Commission, that is your mandate. That is your job. That is your job while these hardworking people are at work trying to raise a living for their families, for them not to have to look over their backs. Respectfully, you're being paid for that. But again, I'd like to speak very quickly about facts of the dewatering project. It seems to be remiss in nature. You would think that there would be some perfunctory or nominal input as far as areas of concern regarding this matter, but in many times it's remiss. I mean, oftentimes there is no response. The request for amendment does not clearly comprehensively identify the streams that will be impacted by dewatering. No information is presented on the size of the impacted streams and whether the impacted reduction in flow will fully dewater any stream. Dewatering will occur upstream from Tier 2 pristine portions of Mattawoman Creek and Sequoia Swamp. Impacted Tier 2 waters have no remaining assimilative capacity. I guess the DeHydro's report concludes there will be no impacts from temporary dewatering and wetlands. The report provides no scientific citations to support this conclusion. No evidence is provided that these conditions will have no impact to aquatic organisms in impacted streams. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify the impact of dewatering on small impacted streams, including the percent reduction in flow expected from dewatering and whether any streams will be fully dewatered. The Public Service Commission should also require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify the impact of dewatering on wetlands. The amendment request does not include information about the timing of drawdowns, but the timing could be critical for assessing impacts to aquatic animals and plants. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify the timing of dewatering and how that timing may impact the American brook lamprey and other native fish, amphibians, or reptiles. The Public Service Commission should also require that the request for amendment be amended to prohibit dewatering during time periods when dewatering would unreasonably impact the American brook lamprey and other stream and wetland organisms. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify lateral extent of the contaminated plume from the Superfund site at Joint Base Andrews and to reassess the potential impact of the drawdown based on this new information. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to address drawdowns associated with long sections of open trenches. So impacts of returned water are not properly considered. The amendment request explains that water pumped from pipeline corridor will be filtered out and discharged into nearby areas. No evaluation is included in the document of potential impacts from this return of large volumes of water to wetlands or other surface waters. The amount of water discharged per day into streams and wetlands is not broken out by stream or by wetlands. The Tri-Hydro report also includes no information about the size of streams or wetlands receiving the proposed discharge of pumped water or a comparison of the amount of discharge to average daily flow of these streams. No discussion is presented about how these streams will be protected from erosion from large volumes of discharge. Further, no discussion is presented about the local drainage ditches into which pumped water will be released, or whether these ditches are sufficiently large and engineered such that the water does not damage roads, railroad tracks, nearby properties. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify how and where and what volumes pumped water will be returned to streams and wetlands, and to identify how water pumped into drainage ditches will not damage roads, railroad tracks, or nearby properties even before the water reaches streams or wetlands. Impacts to the Sequoia Swamp are not clearly described. Sequoia Swamp is a wetland of special state concern for the Washington Suburban Sanitation Commission and the largest hardwater swamp in Maryland. According to the Tri-Hydro report, the headwaters of this important ecological resource will receive nearly 90,000 gallons per day of water pumped from the construction area. The request for amendment states that the discharge will have no impact on this ecologically sensitive area, but provides no analysis or evidence to support this claim. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to identify how the water will be returned to the Sequoia Swamp tributaries and to demonstrate that this will be accomplished in a manner that does not cause erosion or otherwise disrupt the function of wave of this of the Washington Suburban Sanitation Commission. Cumulative impacts to streams and wetlands from dewatering are not fully considered. The amendment request asserts that minimal, if any, cumulative impacts will result in dewatering because the impacts are short-term and temporary. It does not mention any cumulative impacts to waters of the state that would result from multiple disruptions to streams and wetlands in the project area. Ending my comments, the Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to clearly identify total linear feet of streams which will be impacted by dewatering in each construction segment for the Mattawoman Creek and Sakaya Swamp waterbeds. Open trenching is proposed across Mattawoman Creek and other streams in both the Mattawoman and Sakaya Swamp watersheds. These streams will be impacted by open trenching and dewatering, but no evaluation of the possible cumulative impacts of these activities is provided. The Public Service Commission should require that the request for amendment be amended to include assessment of impacts of dewatering combined with open trench crossings of headwater streams. And I thank you for your time. And I ask also in closing, gentlemen, that this issue, I mean, when you think about this, all of these power plants in one area, you know, as if you put yourself in our shoes, I mean, how I believe you as professionals and who know the process would surely speak up as we have spoken. And I would suggest also that the people whose faces we do not see are exponential in number, because as we advocate for them, they really trust that you as the Public Service Commission would carry out this mandate. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Bird. Are there any additional members of the public that wish to provide comment? Thank you. At this time, we'll take a brief recess. We'll return at 11:50. We'll hear the response from Mattawoman. So we're in recess until 11:50 a.m. Commission will be back on record within 1 minute. The commission is back on the record. At this time, we will hear from representatives from Women Energy Center, LLC, to respond to the state agencies, as well as comments that were heard this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Ian Shavitz, and I'm the attorney for Women Energy, and I'll be providing a brief overview of Women's request that's currently before the commission. We also have available Brandon Upchurch, who's the Senior Vice President for Development for Women Energy, as well as Brad Pikas, who's with Tri-Hydro Corporation. He's a licensed engineer and was responsible for preparing the report that was submitted in support of Women's request. So they are available for any questions that the commissioners may have. I plan to be brief, and then, as I said, we'll answer any questions. I recognize that the commission has been provided a lot of information this morning, but to be clear and respectfully, the request before the commission this morning is very narrow. Women is seeking a CPCN amendment to authorize groundwater withdrawals to construct the Women Energy Center's natural gas pipeline. And the question is, does this dewatering meet the state's regulatory requirements? I would agree and concur with the state agencies and the commission that the information presented was adequate to make that determination, and also support their recommendations that the commission approve the amendment. I would also note that Joint Base Andrews has submitted a comment indicating that they do not object to the request. So I want to confirm several items for the commission. First, the pipeline route has not changed. This is the pipeline route that was approved in the CPCN, where the commission, MDE, and PPRP and Department of Natural Resources undertook a full evaluation of the impacts and approved it. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has looked at the impacts and has issued a permit, as well as the state has issued wetlands and waterway impact permits and a water quality certification. The second point is there was a significant amount of discussion about Cedarville State Park. One thing that was required in the extensive number of conditions that the commission placed on the project in the CPCN is that this area be constructed, or I should say the pipeline be installed using horizontal directional drilling. And that horizontal directional drilling does not require dewatering. Second point is that within the park, the area where the pipeline will be is in existing disturbed areas where there already is a utility corridor or rights of way. With respect to notice, Women sent a notice letter to the current owners of property that are adjacent to the natural gas pipeline. That is what is required by state law, and the state agencies have confirmed that state law requirements were in fact followed. The other point that I would make is with respect to the impacts of this dewatering, again, which is in front of the commission, is very narrow in that the drawdown from the dewatering is 1 foot up to 400 feet from the actual dewatering area, and is 1/10 of a foot to the point of 700 feet of the dewatering area. So those impacts and the impacted areas are, are significantly narrow and small. PPRP and MDE found that the state Mattawoman's request is reasonable, that this is a common request and there's a need for dewatering when you are installed to safely install a pipeline. And I'd also like to point out that that Mattawoman, by changing its method of cooling, has reduced the overall amount of dewatering significantly for the project. It reduced the site dewatering by 19 million gallons, and the dewatering that would have been associated with a cooling water pipeline by 29.2 million gallons. We have included with our request a report by Tri-Hydro, very comprehensive report that's been independently reviewed and evaluated by the state agencies, and they concurred with the findings of that report. That report found that the dewatering is reasonable. It satisfies Maryland's regulatory requirements regarding water appropriations and will have only temporary, non-adverse, and limited impacts to property owners along the pipeline route, as well as to the environment. I want to just cover several of the steps that Mattawoman has taken to avoid impacts or minimize impacts to the greatest extent possible. Some of these were mandated by the Commission's comprehensive CPCN conditions. Others were, undertaken, by Mattawoman to just reduce these impacts. First, I wanted to clarify one statement by Commission staff that it indicated that there was going to be 7.3 miles of dewatering required. In fact, the pipeline length is 7.3 miles. However, through using directional drilling and other methods, only 63% of that pipeline will require dewatering. Mattawoman has or will maximize the amount of horizontal directional drilling, again, to avoid the need for dewatering, especially in wetlands and in any areas of concern or where there are sensitive resources. The dewatering periods will be short, 40 days at most for an individual segment, and those would be associated with the open trench areas, and only 19 days for the jack and bore segments. As also explained in the Tri-Hydro report, for every essential day of dewatering, the water table will come back to its pre-dewatering levels in that same day period. So at maximum, the dewatering levels would be back to their, the dewatering of the aquifers would be back to their original levels with at most 40 days in those segments for open trenching. Also like to point out that the water will be returned to the environment, and to clarify that the water that is taken out through the dewatering will not be just, think about a hose just put right back in the environment. We recognize that there would be erosion issues associated with that and other environmental impacts. As required by the conditions, these waters will be filtered. We'll go through sediment bags. We'll use hay bales where appropriate, so that there's a measured return of the water to the environment. And in the sensitive areas and elsewhere, the amount of water that will be dewatered will be equivalent to the seasonal fluctuations that are regularly experienced by those areas. As I mentioned, the request meets the state's regulatory requirements, which are based upon reasonableness. They're reasonable in relation to level of use and the permitted period. We're only seeking to withdraw the minimum necessary for safe construction of the pipeline, and the dewatering periods are going to be short, as I mentioned, to allow the groundwater table to recover fully and quickly. There will be no impact to waters of the state. Water will be filtered and put back into the environment. And again, the impacts on the underground aquifers will be less than the naturally monthly or seasonal fluctuations. Finally, there will be no unreasonable impact on water users. We have gone ahead and looked at MDE's well registry. All of the wells that are within the drawdown area do go to the deep aquifers, so those will remain unaffected by any dewatering associated with the shallow aquifers. And finally, with respect to environmental impacts to wetlands, waterways, and areas of concern, again, the dewatering is subject to and regulated by comprehensive conditions in MDE's permit, in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, in the Commission's CPCN conditions. So the Tri-Hydro report concluded that these impacts would not be unreasonable. They would not be long-term. They would not be adverse because they're short in duration. The area where there will be drawdown is very narrow. As I had mentioned, close to the area of dewatering. The extracted water will be returned, and the drawdown areas will be few with respect to wetland areas and other sensitive resources. The final point that I wanted to make is with respect to the JBA's Superfund site. As identified in the Tri-Hydro report and as confirmed by the lack of objection by JBA, and we specifically met with JBA and their engineers to provide them information about this dewatering and confirm that they had no concerns, and they did not. And the reason for that is that any drawdown that will occur at its closest point would be a third of a mile away from the DRMO and the institutional control area. With that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. And as I said, we're happy to address any questions, both myself as well as a representative from the applicant and our engineer, Mr. Pikas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shavitz. At this time, we will have the commissioners ask questions of the applicant and the parties to this case. Let me begin by saying that this is a very narrow case, as many of the commenters recognized, and it's to review the CPCN amendment that Madam Woodman filed regarding the proposed dewatering plan. This proceeding is not an opportunity to relitigate the CPCN that was granted in 2015 or to review other items outside of this application, including transportation concerns, traffic concerns, and other issues that may be related to the project, but not related to the proposed dewatering plan. With that, I recognize that a comment was received just this morning by Dr. Cole and the Clean Air Prince George's group. That document is dated today, November 3rd. Apparently there was a issue with the filing of this document. It may have been filed earlier. Perhaps Dr. Cole can respond. But I'm just seeing it for the first time this morning. And it relates to a report that was commissioned by Clean Air Prince George's by a group called Downstream Strategies. Dr. Cole, can I just give you a minute to respond? Because I have not looked at that report. And Doctor, you're on mute.
So what is your question, please?
My question is, I have a report that's in front of me that was just appears to be dated today and signed by you. I haven't read that report yet. Can you explain to me why we're seeing it today?
Well, it was originally submitted by probably about 20 to 12 on the 1st of November as required. But it was submitted in the wrong way, using the wrong portal, I guess. So, I immediately contacted a number of staff who were very helpful in getting it on the record. It was on the record, I believe, late last night. or early in the wee hours of the morning. The executive director was kind enough to contact me and state that it was on the record. I apologize for any confusion, but I will tell you that the report, it is absolutely critical for the members of the commission to read and evaluate the report prior to making its decision.
Interrupt you, Dr. That's the situation that I'm bringing to the attention of the parties right now, because I haven't read this report dated today, filed by you and your consultants here. I suspect that PPRP has not had an opportunity to review it either. I'll ask Mr. Carlson, have you seen this report yet?
I saw it this morning, Chairman Stanek, and I forwarded it to Fred Kelly at PPRP, but it was just in the hour before the hearing started, so I doubt if he's had a chance to read. He's online and can probably address that matter if need be, but it was just an hour before the hearing that I forwarded it to him, as well as to Mr. Grace.
And Mr. Wilson, when did PPRP file its recommendation in this proceeding?
Oh, geez. Several weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have the exact date in front of me right now. I apologize. But several weeks ago.
Yeah, this is Fred Kelly. It looked like we had filed that on October 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. So we've had your position now for several weeks. This is obviously an important issue. We've heard from more than a dozen interested residents and advocates today. It's hard for me to make a decision when we're receiving a report that was filed on Monday, although I'm just seeing it now because of the technical difficulties in filing, and I'm not in a position to opine or to respond to the downstream report. Does Mr. Shavitz, does the developer have a position with respect to this report that was filed on Monday?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We like most others saw the report yesterday evening. We have had our expert, Mr. Pikas. He has had the ability to review it and could hit on the points and respond if that would be helpful to the commission. Yes, we just received it yesterday evening as well.
Okay, thank you. It might not help me because I haven't had a chance to review the report in its entirety. Let me just say, I did hear, I took detailed notes of the individuals who presented today. I want to acknowledge that their concerns have been considered by the commission. Appreciate those folks also taking time out of their personal lives to come and present testimony before the commission today. That being said, this commissioner is not in a position to rule today because of the late filed document and the possible significance, although I can't render judgment if it's significant or not until I have an opportunity to review it. So I will have a proposal after other commissioners have an opportunity to ask their questions first. So let me open it up to my fellow commissioners to see if there are questions. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And actually, I'm glad you just made those remarks because those are the same thoughts. I did have a chance to read the report, and I think it makes some very important points about deficiencies in the hydro report. And I was going to ask the representative from MDNR if they've had a chance to really look over those points. And yes, I don't know what you're going to propose, but I was going to just suggest the citizens, the Prince George's County citizens have requested 90 days. That might be sufficient time so that we can let all the parties review this report, and we can hear back from MDE and DNR and others so that we can make an informed decision, because I was pretty troubled by some of the reported deficiencies. And I have to say, after hearing the citizens this morning, I think there are other issues that could be related directly to this dewatering project that I would like to better understand. So anyway, I did have some, because if that's where you are, that's exactly the same place I am. I would really like to give sufficient time to really have all the parties report back on the report that we received today. So with that, I will withhold any other questions for the moment.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond to that, if that's okay?
Yes, you may. I'm not sure if you had a question there, but if you like.
Okay, thank you again. This is Ian Shavitz. I would just say that the report, just for those that have not seen it, is 6 pages long. There are a number of items in the report that go beyond the scope of the question that's before the commission, but there are several that are within scope. So I would, I guess, ask, and I don't know if the Commissioner Richard was suggesting a 90-day adjournment to review the report, but I would just suggest that we understand, and I think, Chairman, this is where you are headed, that there may be some additional time needed to review the report. We would be agreeable to that. I would just ask that it, respectfully, that it be a reasonable amount of time in light of the the short length of the report, and that Madam be given the opportunity to expeditiously provide a written response as well, so the commissioners have the benefit of of that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, since that was a response, I guess, to my question, I would like to understand why 90 days is unreasonable. If you could, because it really talks about deficiencies. So if you were correct, it's a very, pretty short report, but I think that's the point of the report. It's about these deficiencies that may take some time for the parties to investigate. Specifically, our Department of Natural Resources and our Department of Environment. So, unless there's you can answer why 90 days is unreasonable. And we're talking about going into the holiday season. We're talking also about a group of citizens that, have, to try to work together and get coordinated. And also we are in the time of COVID, so they're not going to be able to get together in groups. They're going to have to do this virtually. So again, I think 90 days is very reasonable. That's why I would stand with the Prince George's Clean Air request. Thank you.
Do you have additional substantive questions, or should we move to other commissioners?
That was not a substantive question. My question really is, could you please tell us why you think it is unreasonable? Because I feel that from what I've heard from the citizens, it sounds perfectly reasonable. So is that substantive enough, Mr. Chairman? That's my question to the company.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner, I thought you said earlier that you may have other questions, not talking about the procedure of when they need to respond.
And I'm sorry, since the company responded to what they called my question, I had a follow-up on the reasonableness question. That was why we're having this exchange.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners, questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say we at the commission have demonstrated time and again our desire to be transparent. Can you hear me okay? I see someone leaning forward. Okay. Our desire to be transparent with our proceedings and fair and equitable to all parties at all times. I don't know if we're perfect in that regard, but I can tell you that we value it. I appreciate the citizens speaking today to have their voices heard. But I also, and it's greatly appreciated, and they were heard. But I also know that legally, I don't believe many of the requests today to stop this, to
make them go back to reapply, to sell their land, or whatever. All of those things are legally before us. They're not matters that we can rule on at this point. This is a very narrow proceeding, it's a very narrow application, and I think we're limited legally to the scope of that application and not relitigating the entire CPCN process. That's my opinion, and I wanted to share that because I don't want there to be false expectations as to what is actually before this commission in this proceeding today. I would like a chance to read the report, so I'm amenable to that, but I don't think we should delay it because we have a narrow proceeding. I don't think we should delay it an extraordinary amount of time. I think in a shorter period of time would be more reasonable in my mind, to be fair to all parties. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe 30 days, a month is certainly a reasonable amount of time to read and digest. The other parties have had this report. Now some of us who haven't had it need to read it, digest it, and factor it in. So I would be okay with a shorter period of time, but just lengthening it for the sake of delay for a longer period of time, I don't believe is necessary, nor do I believe it's equitable, and I would support a shorter period of time.
Mr. Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Mr. Tolson, and I don't know if you want to send it off to the representative from MDE, but my question is, I'm looking at the notice requirement that was cited, which is the environment article, I think it's 5204. And I understand that the notice has been served on contiguous property owners and appropriate local officials. But the question I have then is that then the department, which I'm assuming is the Department of the Environment, drafts a public notice, and then there are the opportunity for people to be included on the mailing list of interested persons. So I think we heard that this case has had a long history and that there's already a group of interested persons. So were those people included in the notice? And I'm just trying to understand, if not, can you explain to me why not? And maybe I'm misreading the statute, so maybe you can help me out.
Commissioner Herman, I think John Grace of MDE is on this line today, and because MDE controls that, I'd like to defer to him. They sent the notice, and they do not have counsel on the call today, but I believe that he can respond to you. So I'd like to see if he can join in. John, are you there?
Sir, you might have a device hooked into your microphone. Your microphone is open, but we cannot hear you, Mr. Grace. You have something plug, like a headset now? Volume control? Can you say you're on? Mr. Grace, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I've lost video connection. I'm sorry. I hit a wrong button somehow.
Well, we could hear you and see you, so you could.
Okay. I can't see myself. All right. So the question was about notice, and there's another law, and I believe it's in Title 502 that concerns CPCN proceedings, and the hearing and notice requirements of 5204 by the CPCN requirements. So that's why there is not a unique MDE publication of notice or anything like that. The statute for CPCN proceedings replaced 5204. Steve, you might remember this more precisely because it was a question that we looked at a little bit. And do you recall any more details on that?
No, because as I recall, it was MDE council who discussed that or resolved the issue.
Yeah,
we deferred to them.
Right, and I think I would, to be very precise about it, I would go back to my emails and conversations with council that we had, and give a better response. But in essence, the letters that were sent were in addition to the notice requirements of the CPCN process. So for water appropriations handled under CPCNs, it's the CPCN process that fulfills the public notification requirements.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'll take a look at 502.
Yeah, I can give you the, I think I can look it up here, maybe the exact citation. I think it's 5204E. I mean 5502E.
Okay. I can take a look at that offline. I just, because there was some discussion that interested persons who had been on the interested persons list from prior hearings and notices and things like that, and there was they were saying that they didn't receive notice, and I was just trying to understand whether under the law they were required to receive.
This is Fred Kelly. I could concur with what John Grace said, but I think with respect to the water appropriation, it's contiguous landowner notification, not essentially interested person notification. And John, you may be able to elaborate on that.
Well, anytime there's a new appropriation, it's for the contiguous landowners, right?
Okay. All right, I'll take a look at that. I appreciate that. Since it sounds like, and I agree with my colleagues that there should be some review of the report. And Mr. Tolson, that's what I wanted to ask you about secondarily, which is, could PPRP and all of the state agencies provide a report, provide a response to that report within 30 days?
Well, I've got both John and Fred on the call here. I believe that sounds like a reasonable period of time if it's only a 6-page report and something they can address, but I'll defer to each of them to weigh in.
Yes, I think we could easily do that within 30 days. We've done a quick review of the report. Didn't see anything in there too deep to respond to, but I didn't want to mischaracterize anything, just having had an hour to review the thing. So yeah, we could do that within 30 days.
Commissioner Herman, are you finished?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cole, I'm going to move to Commissioner Linton. Do you have something very pressing? Mr. Grace, if you could go on mute. Dr. Cole, if you can unmute yourself.
So I've heard mention of a 6-page report. It's totally inaccurate. While it's a 6-page report, yes, but the report requires an investigation of the trihydro report, et cetera. So you have to review that in the context of a much bigger report, because that's where the evidence is, and that's where the report cites the deficiencies. So it's not just a matter of paging through 6 pages, it's a matter of digging into the deficiencies which have been identified.
Dr.
Yeah, so that's all.
Okay. But Dr. Cole, you're referencing the Tri-Hydro report that we currently have, correct?
Yes, I'm representing both the legal report to which and the Tri-Hydro report, which is attached, because there's a lot of information and a lot of statements and evidence presented in those reports. So it's not just the 6 pages. It's going back through a very lengthy report to see if the deficiencies identified need to be corrected. And I would just agree with Commissioner Richard that we're going to need 90 days, all parties, to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cole, if you can.
Yeah.
And we have had the Tri-Hydro report, just for reference. I think it is almost 200 pages since September 28th. Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of the questions that I had have already been answered, so I would associate myself with the concerns of my colleagues regarding the scope of this hearing here today. After listening to some of the comments from some of the commenters, there's a part of me that wishes I was a commissioner back in 2015, but didn't have that opportunity, so I have to take it as it's in front of me at this time. But I did have a question for PPRP regarding some of the comments that were made by some of the public speakers that we heard from this morning. And it might be addressed to some extent by the report that Mr. Cole has referenced, or excuse me, Dr. Cole has referenced earlier today that that I also have not had the opportunity to review yet. But for PPRP, there's been some general suggestion made that the state's review of this application that's before us today was fairly sparse. And I believe one of the comments from the Clean Air Prince George's County, they claimed that you needed time to do a full and accurate assessment of the proposal. So I think we've heard some of your response to that today, but I wanted to make sure that I heard from PPRP and from DNR/MDE if it's your belief that you've conducted the review necessary and called on for the state by statute and by the expectations of this commission. Is it your statements here today that you have actually satisfied the requirements?
This is Fred Kelly with Power Plant Research Program. I was the project review manager for the Mattawoman Energy Center project all the way back in 2015 timeframe when it was approved. We had a very lengthy review of the project, the power plant project, as well as all the linear facilities. We included a condition in the recommended license conditions of the original CPCN that directed Mattawoman to come back and review the water appropriation requirements or needs for linear facilities. That's why we're back before you for the appropriation for the natural gas pipeline. Back when we originally reviewed the project, yes, we did have the power for the pipeline route. That was part of the original CPCN. Our finding, we had 150-page environmental review document supporting our conditions that we filed back then. So I feel I confirm that that we did an adequate review with respect to all the rules and regulations of the state of Maryland. What's before us today, I think it's very narrow. My impressions coming into this prior to receiving the 6-page report that was filed today was that this is it's the impacts here for water withdrawal be very limited in scope, short duration, temporary. Have to also point out that I think, as Mr. Shavitz noted, the permits from Army Corps of Engineers and MDE wetlands and waterway permits, those have already been issued. And they also include provisions that cover a lot of things that I think the folks that are concerned about the project feel are neglected. The MDE, the Wetland and Waterways Permit covers sediment erosion control, covers Tier 2 streams, RTE species, some provisions in there. So I think a lot of this is covered by the information already available on the project. But I didn't want to go forward and comment thoroughly on this 6-page report, having just received it this morning. So I'll leave it to the commission to decide how long to defer this or bring this back before for a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. Based on what the commission has heard today, including the concerns of the parties and the report, the 6-page report that was filed by the Clean Air Prince George's commissioned by Clean Air Prince George's by Downstream Strategies. What we're going to do is the developer, Mattawoman Energy LLC, and the state agencies may file a response to that report within 30 days by December 4th, 2020. And we'll bring this matter back onto the commission's administrative meeting for December 9th, 2020. Seeing no additional business before the commission today, this meeting is adjourned.